Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second part of Chapter 1 of BUS 201. So, here we're talking about social customs. Different cultures have different customs, and it's important to be accustomed to them before committing to any kind of communication that we do with them. The roles, the manners, the status, and the time, these functions are different for different cultures. They all have different perceptions of manner, time, status, and role. And similarly, the nonverbal communication, such as body language and personal space, varies from culture to culture. We all know that different cultures have their own unique body languages, and they also have their own perceptions of personal space as well. For example, in US and North American countries, standing 5 feet apart during talking is considered normal. But if you look at Arabian countries or Latin American countries, this is too far. Those people, they tend to stand closer together. So if you're communicating with people from those kind of countries, we need to adapt our space. Similarly, body language, the gestures, the hand movements, facial expression that we do, we also have to tailor that to the culture that we are addressing. Overcoming ethnocentrism. What is ethnocentrism? Ethnocentrism is basically a belief that your culture or your way of doing things is the best or superior way, and you disregard or look down other ways of doing things and other cultures. It can be considered similar to racism, and it is definitely something that business communicators need to avoid. So how do we avoid it? By accepting distinctions, which means accepting differences. Don't assume that everyone is similar. Some people are different, and that is fine. Avoid assumptions about other cultures and other races, and try to withhold your judgment. Never assume that a person is a stereotype. Don't judge them, because by doing that, you are hampering the communication process. It's important to develop strong written intercultural skills when communicating. Some easy guidelines are: use plain English. Don't use complex language. Be clear. Avoid slangs and idioms. Not necessarily because they are rude, but because different cultures might have their own slangs and idioms, which people from another culture might not necessarily get. Write short paragraphs. Ideally, your each paragraph should consist of one topic, and they should be no more than 8 to 10 lines long. Try to separate your topics into separate paragraphs instead of all in one. Be brief as much as possible. Use transitions. What are transitions? Transitions are phrases which make the writing flow smoother. For example, moreover, consequently, however, thus. These are all examples of transitional elements. These make your writing seem to flow smoother. Use proper addresses, especially when you're writing internationally. Cite numbers carefully. That means whenever possible, try to write numbers such as 27 numerically, the digits, rather than writing the letters 27 using letters. So whenever you're practicing oral intercultural skills, it's important to minimize noise and distractions. Try to obtain feedback as much as possible to ensure that the other party is on the same page as you. Speak slowly. Now, whenever someone doesn't understand something, try to repeat the information using simpler words. Don't just say it loudly. That's not the right way to do it. Clarify your intent. Tell them what you are trying to do. Do not talk down or act superior. Do not think that the other person knows less than you. That is not efficient communication. And always try to be as accurate as possible. Learning some simple foreign phrases can go a long way in communicating effectively. For example, if you're talking to someone in Japanese, it's good to learn some Japanese phrases. For example, the simple ones: hi, hello, goodbye, how are you, my name is. These will go a long way in making the other person accept your communication. Always listen carefully, adapt your style to the speaker. For example, if you're talking to someone who is very direct and straightforward, don't beat about the bush. Don't give too much details. Try to get to the point, because that is what the other person will appreciate. Check for understanding every now and then, clarify the next step that you're trying to do, and watch for body language indicators. For example, if someone is dozing off, rolling their eyes, looking away, or daydreaming, their body language will give them away. So try to spot the body language and adjust accordingly. Tips to improve workplace sensitivity. Assume differences, which I already mentioned in ethnocentrism. Take responsibility for communication. Don't assume that it's always other person who's going to communicate. Sometimes you have to go and talk to the other person. Take responsibility for communication. Don't judge, like I said before. Be respectful to other cultures. Try to learn what respect is in different cultures. For example, what do Japanese people do when they want to show respect? What do Europeans do? Knowledge of these will go a long way in making you an efficient communicator. Show empathy. That means put yourself in the shoes of the other person. And finally, tolerate ambiguity. Ambiguity means dual meanings or multiple meanings. If there's a confusion, don't get frustrated. Try to clarify or clear it out. Look past the superficial. Don't get influenced by dress codes, appearance, style, etc. These are superficial elements. Be patient always and be persistent. When you're communicating with someone from a different culture, it's very important to be patient and persistent. Don't be frustrated if someone doesn't understand you initially. Try to work it out. Try to find other ways of communicating. That's very, very important. Admit your own cultural biases, because every culture has certain preconceived notions. Try to find out what your own cultural biases are. And lastly, stay flexible. Don't be rigid when it comes to intercultural communication. Try to find a common ground where you both can communicate. Send clear messages and not confusing signals. Deal with individuals. Every person is unique. Don't assume that a person is a stereotype of a particular race. For example, if you're talking to Americans, don't assume that everybody is a typical American. There's no such thing as a typical American. Everyone is unique. Don't stereotype. Learn when to be direct and when to be indirect. For example, if you're communicating a good news, you can be direct. It's fine. But if you're communicating a negative message or a bad news, it's better to be indirect rather than direct. And finally, test your understanding. When you're communicating with people from different cultures, try to treat them as an experiment. Try to see how they react to what you say. Then you understand what is considered positive and what is considered negative in that particular culture. And the next time, use this learning to enhance and improve your communication. Thank you.